The gap between the haves and the have-nots on our planet has gone from the ridiculous to the reprehensible. An Oxfam report this week concluded that the poorest 3.7 billion people in the world own as much wealth as the richest 42. Yeah, that's right, 42. This should be the biggest concern for the great and the good as they gather at the World Economic Forum in Davos. Some say the super rich live on another planet, but this may literally become a necessity as public services cease to function. This inequality has become morally and economically unsustainable. And yes, at the risk of sounding like a Corbynite, we really can't afford to continue being intensely relaxed about the world where the gap between rich and poor has become so extreme. This is indeed a global issue, and we need an international solution, something similar to the Paris Climate Agreement. If we continue to fail to act on income inequality, then the reactions will be much more direct than a few unexpected results at the ballot box.
Well, so it's worth looking at who some of these people are, these very wealthy people, because it's people that some of us may know. So at the top of the list, it's Jeff Bezos, who does Amazon. We've got Bill Gates, Microsoft. We've got Mark Zuckerberg, Facebook. We've got the guys behind Google, etc. So these, for me, are entrepreneurs that I admire and respect greatly. These are people who have had visions, have worked hard, have sacrificed, and created businesses that have changed the worlds of billions of people. They have given access to people to be educated, to set up their own businesses, to create their own levels of wealth. The taxation that their businesses have paid, and certainly should be paying, is enormous. And actually, I have nothing but admiration for these people, because what they have done is changed our society in fantastic, immeasurable ways. And it's also worth saying as well that these guys give billions and billions of pounds to philanthropic causes. And actually, what I think this report is doing, it's building on some anti-capitalist narrative, and what it's trying to do, it's trying to create politics of envy and trying to create a dislike of capitalism amongst people. And I think what we should be doing is celebrating people who create wealth, making sure that they pay the right taxes, and stop knocking them.
Well, I mean, I'll let you go, then I'll...
I mean, some of them do give very large sums of money to...
Some of them don't.
Some of them give nothing. But, I mean, Zuckerberg gives, you know, 1.6 billion a year, has given 1.6 billion. Bill Gates is, and runs the Gates Foundation, which is an incredible charity that helps across the world. It certainly helps in Africa.
Not very much.
He's given 60 million. Warren Buffett given 46 billion. 46 billion.
106 billion.
But what you said at the beginning is this is a problem, and that
it's global.
Everybody knows it's a problem.
Yeah, everybody does.
What they don't know is what do you do about it in a globalised world.
Precisely.
And I think you're sort of, you know, the climate change comparison is the wrong one. I don't think you can just get a lot of people together and say, here, let's do about this. Now, you could do something, and there's no doubt in this country, the politicians, Mrs May and others, are concerned about this ever-growing gap. And I have no doubt that the ever-growing gap was part of the reason Trump got elected. It was part of the reason we voted for Brexit and the rest of it. It's just that the poorest in the society feel increasingly left behind.
And also...
But what I don't know, unless you're prepared to, which is where we come back to my discussion about taxation, unless you're prepared to tax the rich to a much greater extent, I'm not sure what you can do about it.
Well, the reason why I used the Paris Climate Accord as an example is because the real issue is for a lot of these high net worth individuals and obviously big corporations, they are able to keep their money in other countries. So with, let's say, Apple, for example, they have a war chest of something like $120 billion that they don't want to bring into America so that they don't pay tax on it.
No, but my point is, that's why Trump has reduced the taxation levels in the hope they'll bring it back.
But my point is, but they're still able to use that money and function as a business and acquire other businesses with that money. And I think what we need is some sort of global agreement that makes it harder to do that so that these super rich pay the right level of tax. Because at the end of the day, we all suffer.
So you want a global tax system?
Not a global tax system. I want some sort of agreement that makes it harder to hide money in the way that it is at the moment. That's what I
presume, Nick, you're shaking your head, but I presume you would agree that Starbucks claiming that they had, like, hardly any profit in this country, even though legal, is somewhat ethically suspect.
I'm not familiar with their tax affairs.
Right. Okay. So you don't think they made any profit?
But if they were able to exploit, hang on, if they were able to, as long as they didn't break the law, and I'm sure they didn't.
That's the problem. That's why I'm saying that we need to change.
We've all decided, just briefly, to ignore Michelle's excellent point, which is the number of people these companies employ.
I was in the middle of a response.
I know, but let's just remember that these are companies which I can't damn well find now. Here we go. What's this list? Here we go. Amazon, Zara, by the way. He's done well, hasn't he? See how much he charges. He charges for his bed sheets. How he's worth 76 billion. I've no idea. The number of people employed by these companies.
Stop deflecting.
Fantastic.
Can I ask
we need more.
No, I'm going to ask you that same question again, as I do regularly, and you're not going to get away with it. I didn't ask whether you think it was legal.
What's that?
I asked you whether you thought it was ethical that Starbucks claimed they made no profit at a certain given time in this country, like Amazon. They didn't, basically, because they were taking their profits and they were sending them back to Amsterdam.
No, I don't think it sounds very good.
Right, OK, that's all. Because
if that's what they
that's
do.
all June's saying. However, I do agree that the solution can't be that we raise our taxes in this country, because then they'll all go elsewhere.
Yeah.
That's why I think, if I've understood you correctly, you need a global system.
Precisely.
So there's no hiding place.
That's my point.
Go elsewhere.
Well, who won't?
No, these companies.
But
The
individuals.
individuals, but they don't live here, most of them, anyway.
Well, London's got more billionaires in New York.
Yes, but they're not these companies.
A lot of them moved.
No, but it's a principle that applies to all of them, right? So if we raise taxes here, London currently has more billionaires than New York. They will go elsewhere, and it's good that they're here.
I'm not sure that that's the great tragedy. I mean, that's the whole argument about non-doms, because they'll stay here. I don't believe in that.
No, but my point is that's why we need some sort of global system, because this is becoming...
But you're not going to get a global system.
It's never going to happen.
There's always going to be
it's always going to be a year of little vision. Why not?
Because if I'm running a country, I'm going to make damn certain I don't buy into it, and everybody will come to me.
There's always going to be a Cayman Islands. Always.
Well, not everyone will go to a Cayman Island.
Well, not Cayman Islands, but there'll be one another. I mean, why did some of these countries move to Ireland? Because the taxation rate was lower.
And that's why we need to have some sort of agreement where it just makes it harder to do, because this is a global problem, Greg.
Look, it's a difficult problem.
We're only at the beginning of the
in every
problems it's
country.
about
It's a
to
difficult
cause.
problem in this country, and you could conceive of ways of making sure taxation works here and those things. To try to do it internationally, I mean, we'll be discussing it in 30 years' time. Nothing will have changed.
To me, we at least need to start having the conversation.
I mean, the other thing I think in Britain...
But you could say the same about climate change.
I do think that Britain needs the culture of philanthropy that the United States has got. I don't think people who get rich here give enough to charities.
The reason we don't is because we have a welfare system that is much more...
That's, of course, unless they go to rather...
No, there's an additional reason, and it's because we tax higher. So you do realise what you're asking for means lower taxes.
And hang on,
back to Michelle's tax point on...
Just as earlier,
go on.
Right, we were celebrating aspects of colonialism. We should be celebrating capitalism here.
No. I am not...
This is great enterprise, Michelle.
I am not knocking capitalism. I am not one of these extreme lefties that's totally against
capitalism. Well, it sounds a bit extreme. If you want a Paris tax accord,
what I'm in favour of is inclusive capitalism, because it's getting out of control. If you look at what Theodore Roosevelt was able to do in the 20s, when a similar thing was happening in America, and the Rockefellers and all of these guys, the Carnegies, were getting out of control with their wealth, he stepped in and actually took them on.
Well,
and as a result, stopped that country going up in flames. So we better do something similar.
There's nothing wrong with new thinking and trying to have the conversation. If, Nick, in essence, you agree that it's unethical...
June Corbyn,
If you agree what's going on is unethical, I think it's great to have that conversation.
Not just unethical, Majid, dangerous.
But everyone agrees with you that companies should pay their fair amount of tax. So I don't think anyone would disagree with that.
And individuals.